Happy Friday, Limerick biology students. We've got some visuals to look at today and things you've probably seen a good amount of in your lives already, so let's jump right into it. We're given a scenario here in which a field exists with rabbits, foxes, and hawks all living in the same area. Right off the bat, I'm thinking this would be easier if we could see it, so let's try this again. Grassy field with rabbits, foxes, and hawks. That's better, right? We're told that the rabbits eat the grass and the foxes eat and hawks eat the rabbits, but the foxes and hawks don't or can't eat each other. So the arrows show who's able to eat each other, and we'll go from there. Now for the questions. What would happen if all the grass died? What do you think would happen if all the grass died? What changes could cause an increase in number of rabbits? What would you expect to happen if all the foxes died? How would that affect things? And what would happen if all the foxes and all the hawks died? So pause the video, see what you come up with. We'll go over in a second. This can get complicated if you overthink it, so don't go drive yourself nuts, but we'll go over in a second when you get back. Okay, so if all of the grass died, what's going to happen? If we get rid of all this grass here, who's going to be directly affected? I would think that because there's no grass, the rabbits are very quickly going to run out of food, and all of our little rabbits are going to very quickly die off, right? But it doesn't stop there, because if the rabbits die, the foxes now have no source of food, the hawks have no source of food. Maybe the hawks and the foxes start to try to go after each other to try to get food. Who knows? We're assuming there's no other food source because we're not told of any other food source, so this could be really, really bad if the grass dies, right? Let's reset and go to the next question. Number 2, what changes could cause an increase in the number of rabbits? If you want to get more of these rabbits, what would you need? More hawks, more foxes, more grass, less of one of them? What's going to happen? I would think that if you get more of the grass, this looks like blue fire, but let's say there's more and more grass, that would give more food. The rabbits would have more food to be able to eat. You'd be able to get more of the rabbits. That would work pretty well, right? Anything else that might affect the number of rabbits? What could we do maybe on the top here? If we make more of the hawks and foxes, that would hurt the rabbits. That would not lead to an increase, right? But what if instead we go and now bump off? What if a hunter comes or something bad happens and the hawks and foxes now decrease in numbers? There'd be fewer of them eating the rabbits, so that should make a difference to let the rabbits get a little bit more prominent in the area, right? Number 3, what would you expect to happen if all the foxes died? So we're getting rid of just the foxes here. Well, I would think if they're not eating the rabbits, you could probably get more rabbits. Well, at the same time, that would give more food for the hawks, so you'd probably then get more of the hawks. And if there's then more hawks, they start to eat the rabbits, and that could cause less food to be present for the hawks. So the hawks start to die. With less rabbits, the grass starts to grow crazily. But if you get more grass, then the fewer surviving rabbits can survive a lot better, and that would increase probably a lot more of the hawks. And like I said, you can go crazy if you start to think about this. This is why nature is such a fluid, dynamic thing, because it's always changing. What would happen if all the foxes and all the hawks died? Well, again, if we get rid of all the foxes, all the hawks, nobody's eating the rabbits. So it seems like your rabbit numbers would probably go pretty high pretty quickly, but unfortunately they're going to eat all of the grass up pretty fast, so that's not going to leave a lot of food for anybody else. So your rabbits would then start dying off, in which case the grass will maybe have a chance to come back and your rabbit numbers can go up, and it's going to be really just the rabbits and the grass then some kind of equilibrium, trying to find a happy medium. But in any case, hopefully this shows you how everything's interconnected, and that's what we're going to look at today, how living things rely on each other. For today, we're talking about relationships between species, as we can see in these pictures. If you want to get scientific about it, and when do we ever not, right? Then we can call this kind of thing a symbiosis. That just means living things working together or living together and relying on each other in some way, some kind of relationship between them. This means that life is not isolated and living things interact with each other in different ways. What are those relationships like, though? What do the butterfly and flower do for each other? How about the mosquito and the person, or the clownfish and the anemone? Well, you know the word. Side note, if you think this word symbiosis looks familiar, you may be remembering the terrible third Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire by Sam Raimi, or the slightly better recent Venom one. It wasn't great. It's better than a lot of things, but not nearly as good as some other franchises. And if you ever want to know how Spidey 3 could have been edited and made decent with only the pre-existing footage that we have access to, ask me. We can talk for 15 or 20 minutes or 3 hours, whatever. Moving on. Back to our symbiotic relationships now. And there are 3 different types of symbiotic relationships we'll look at. 3 ways in which living things interact with and depend on each other. First up is the mosquito and human. Would we be happy with this relationship? Think about what you know about mosquitoes. Is the mosquito happy with this? This kind of thing is called parasitism. When you hear something is called a parasite, it means one organism is helped by the other, but the other thing is hurt. So mosquitoes biting us are good for the mosquito. It gets lunch, as in the picture of the dog and the tick up top, but the animal that's being fed on, what we call the host, is being hurt. It's losing blood. It maybe can get some kind of disease from the parasite. This is really not a good thing. So somebody benefits, but the other one is actually harmed by it. Next, we see a bird sitting on a rhino, and this is what's called a mutualism. What's that word sound like? Mutualism. This is a mutually beneficial relationship. So both involved organisms are helped in this relationship. So the bird eats the bugs that land on the rhino, so it gets lunch, and the rhino stays free of pests. In the same way, the bee that's pollinating the flower, the bee gets food from the flower, and then the bee helps the flower by helping it reproduce because it's able to spread that pollen around the neighborhood to other flowers also. The last situation is called commensalism. And this is a weird word. It doesn't really sound like anything. But in this one organism is helped and the other isn't affected at all. So the fish lives in the anemone, but the anemone isn't helped or hurt by this relationship. The barnacles in the top picture can attach to the whale to catch a ride around the ocean, but they don't actually help or hurt the whale. It's just kind of there. So parasitism, you see the little plus and minus. One thing is helped, one thing is hurt. Mutualism, 2 pluses because both things are helped, both things benefit from this relationship. And commensalism, you see a plus and a 0. One thing benefits, but the other one is just kind of there. It really doesn't even know what's going on. It's not helped or hurt by this kind of interaction. Quick info dump for some vocabulary words that we've used before and you probably know already, but an animal that eats another animal is called a predator, and the animal that's eaten is called the prey. I'm assuming you've seen these terms because I know we've spoken about them. Some people brought them up when we looked at the different animals and adaptations last week. And there are any number of examples of this kind of thing in nature where one animal is eating another, one animal is hunting, things like that. The next thing here is a little link, the Battle of Kruger. It's a link to a video, but I'm not going to give it to you because I'm holding out hope that we'll be back together soon and we can all get to experience this incredible video together because it's one of my favorite parts of the year, and I really don't want to just give it to you now. Please don't go watch on your own. If you want to, I can't stop you, obviously, but I really do want to be there for reactions if at all possible. Now, just with these pictures, if you're the mouse in the second picture, you're probably not really a fan of these predators, but why are they an important part of an ecosystem? Without predators, animal numbers could get out of control. As we saw before with the hawks and the foxes with the rabbits. I do have one clip I can show you to kind of show something like this, and it's one of the best things you'll see this year. So, everyone ready? Here we go. That's it. There's no sound. It's just that. But I don't know about you. I could sit here and watch this all day. This never gets old. Unfortunately, I do have to stop. So back to what we were actually doing. Maybe one more. Hopefully these pictures look familiar and not just because we looked at one earlier with the rabbits and the foxes and everything. We can call one of them a food chain, the other a food web. The difference between them is that food chains are too simple to accurately describe what goes on in nature, and there aren't just usually 2 or 3 species obviously outside somewhere. So we saw rabbits, foxes, and hawks before. This picture of the snails on the right and the lizards is even more complicated than that, but we can still even make it more detailed. Food webs show that detail better than food chains can. Food chains are just very simple. Food webs typically show a couple of different food chains sort of interconnect with each other. Each layer of a food web is called a trophic level. And this sounds maybe a little bit like we're just seeing before, like autotroph, the plants that make their own food, or heterotrophs, the animals that eat the plants or eat other animals. So this down here would be a trophic level. The plants that make the food would be one trophic level. The things that primarily eat those plants would be another trophic level. The animals above them that eat those are a trophic level. And the guy all the way at the top up here, that's another trophic level. So just different levels or different layers in this kind of food chain or food web. And so on and so on. Remember, though, that all energy comes from the sun originally, and that's trapped by the plants who are producers because they produce their own food in the form of sugar. Consumers are then the things that consume those plants, that eat them, to use the energy the plants make for their own ATP. Notice that this food web is in a triangle shape. We call this an energy pyramid because it shows the amount of energy available and being used in an ecosystem. It also shows the relative amount of living things present. So the bigger ones at the bottom, there's a lot of those individuals, like plants and bushes, trees. And the ones at the top, like the hawks or the snakes, there's fewer of them because the triangle's narrower. There's not as many individual hawks or snakes. Again, the producers are at the bottom, where the sun's energy is first absorbed and used to make sugar. This part of the pyramid is biggest because you need a lot of producers in order to make energy and feed all of the animals above it, which hopefully makes sense. Next are the primary consumers, right here. Primary consumers, the first things to eat. These are the first non-producers who eat things. They eat the producers. Primary consumers eat these producers, and then secondary consumers eat the primary consumers. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. The tertiary consumers would eat the secondary consumers, and so on and so on. Notice that the producers at the bottom carry out both photosynthesis and respiration because they make energy, they make food from the sun's energy, but then everything else only does respiration. These consumers are not making their own food. They're not doing photosynthesis. They only do respiration. Once they get food, they can make their own ATP by their own life processes. And again, just notice that the higher we go up the pyramid, the fewer individuals there are. We can't have more hawks at the top than snakes or mice below them, because then all the hawks would run out of food pretty quickly. So there's always fewer of these guys at the top of the food chain than there are down here. There's more of the snakes and hawks and more of the frogs and mice to feed the bigger animals or the higher order animals, but more up and up and up you go. There's more of these little things to feed the big guys above them, and there's always the most of the plants at the bottom that you just be consistently and constantly making food for everything that's going to come above them. The higher and higher up we go in the food pyramid, the energy pyramid. Now you see these little arrows kind of going off the side of the pyramid on the left side there. That's because only about 10% of the energy available in any level of the energy pyramid is actually passed on to the next level when the consumer eats. The rest of the energy from food is used by the organisms to stay alive. You eat food to give yourself energy to run your body. It's not just that you can pass it on to something that may eat you in the future. That's why we need to eat so much. We only get a small amount of energy from the food we eat, typically about 10%, since the food we eat is used mostly just to stay alive ourselves. A mouse gets a good amount of energy from the grass it eats, and it won't need to eat as much because it's smaller, but a larger cat that eats that mouse will need to eat a lot of mice just to keep itself running. So mostly about 90% of the food we eat, the energy, I should say, from the food we eat, gets used just for running our bodies and is then not available to be passed on. So it's not a perfect process. It's not that the mouse is eating the grass and immediately being eaten by a hawk and the hawk is immediately eaten by something else. That would be a perfect kind of passing on of energy, but that doesn't happen like that because things are alive. They need the energy they eat, and they use it just to keep themselves alive before they are then eaten by somebody else. So again, always more of the producers at the bottom to make a lot of energy for the fewer number of primary consumers and the even fewer number of secondary consumers, and so on, because most of this energy is going to be given off into the environment and used just to stay alive. That's it for today. Go right now and answer the forum questions below while it's still fresh in mind. Then you've got the whole weekend to finish the worksheet posted in the work file. Oh look, it's one of those rabbits from before. That's nice. He looks like he's having fun. Oh no. Well, maybe this guy just wants to be friends. It's not like, oh no, that's really probably not gonna run, rabbit, run. Oh, never mind. Yeah, so anyway, I'm giving you a lab to do about the numbers of rabbits and lynxes. If you don't know what a lynx is, it's that thing on your screen right here that's not a rabbit. There's also Thundercats character, a lesser known one named Lynxo, named after this thing in later seasons when the show really wasn't that good and they were grasping for straws with ideas. Anyway, to recap, do the forum right now. Finish the worksheet by Sunday night. You've got a couple of days to do this. And then this lab we'll do by Monday. It's in a different little file underneath this video. You've got an extra day to do it, so don't do everything all at once. You can if you want to, but take your time if you need to. Get a couple of extra days. Now, I'm recording this on Thursday. I don't know when I'll get stuff done, but I'm going to at least try to send out an email with all missing labs to remind people if you need to get stuff in already. I've had about 6 emails already today on Thursday morning, people sending me pictures of labs or telling me that they did the lab on OneNote and it's there ready for me to go check. That's great. Thank you. Keep those coming if you need to get anything in still. You've got about a week at this point because the marking period does end next Thursday. We've got a couple days after that to get everything in, so figure about a week and a half for you to get anything done if you still need to. But get everything that you need to get in. Tell me so I can put the grades in, and have a good weekend.